Hi, I'm Trudi Jaye, fantasy author. I'm going to chat today about villains. I thought that was a scrumptious topic to talk about on a cold and actually sunny day here in New Zealand. I love writing about villains, and I'm not one of those people who, you know, like at the moment you've got your morally grey villain and they end up being the hero, and you know, the twist on the tail is always, you know, the bad guy becomes the one that the protagonist falls in love with or whatever. And I kind of still need a villain who's actually just a villain in my stories. I do like that, but I do like a villain who has a reason for being the way they are. They're not like sort of mustache twirling nasty villain who's just kind of being villainous for the sake of being mean and evil. Like they've actually got a reason behind it, and they think they're almost to the point where they think they're in the right, which I do love that. That is kind of a fun concept to chat about. And whilst I'm chatting about it, what I've realized is I do like to have things in my hand and be doing things. So I'm going to play with FIMO whilst I chat. And this is, first of all, before we talk about villains, well, maybe it's a villainous deed, although it wasn't purposeful. I made this little, so if you don't know what FIMO is, it's this kind of soft, I don't know, stuff that you can shape into things, and then you bake it in the oven for a long time at a low heat, and it bakes it and makes it hard. And so I made this little, I don't know if you can see him, probably not, this little dragon, and he was sitting out on the tray in the kitchen, and I'd just been trying to cool him off, and then someone came into the kitchen and he fell on the floor and he broke into 2 big pieces and 4 little teeny tiny pieces. So my little dragon that I made him as a test dragon just to see if I could actually make dragons, because it's been a while since I've actually kind of, I don't know, made stuff with FIMO. This is something I did when I was a kid, but I just thought, actually it's not just FIMO now, it's a brand called Sculpty. So I've got FIMO and Sculpty. So anyway, so I thought, could I make something villainous? I mean, if you can see you can't really see his eyes, but he was an angry looking little dragon. I was using an example that I found on the web, and the example was cute and adorable, and my one ended up looking a bit grumpy. So I don't know, I do like a good grumpy sunshine trope, so maybe that's why. But anyway, so I'm going to be shaping this into something whilst I talk about villains, is my point of my story. We'll see how we go. So what I do love about a villain is not one that it's just who's a bad person, like a villainous kind of character, but I love when there's a villain who actually has a really great backstory, point one, but also kind of like a really great reason for doing what they're doing. It's almost like they have a different world view or perspective to the main character, and then I guess the point is that they become a kind of a 3D character, right? Like the 3-dimensional character, not just a kind of a flat mustache twirling kind of bad guy who you can use to kind of be a foil against the good deeds of your main character, but someone that the guy comes up against. Like one that comes to mind is it Lex Luthor out of Spider-Man, and he was actually, I'm pretty sure I've got the names wrong, please tell me if I haven't, but he was Peter Parker's best buddy, if I'm correct in, and his kind of journey towards being the bad guy is actually coming from the point of view of being the best friend, and then kind of, I think he feels like Spider-Man betrayed him somehow. I don't know, I don't remember the full story because I'm really not actually a massive Spider-Man fan, but no offense to people who are, it's not my favorite tropes. But you know, like that idea of like he's a good guy in many ways, but he just happened to fall onto the wrong side of the path and become the evil nemesis rather than the good guy. That maybe sometimes they even still think that they're the good guy, and in fact that's even better if they think they're the good guy fighting towards the good thing, and then they kind of realize along the way that maybe they're the bad guy. Oh my goodness, that's an awesome, not awful, awesome trope, like, or use of that villain idea. Some other examples, I mean, the one that comes to mind is Voldemort. And I think Voldemort was never, I mean, he was a scary kind of villain, wasn't he? We were all, well, I was certainly a bit scared of him. But he never had, like, his backstory was that he was kind of psychotic from the beginning, right? Like, I mean, he was an orphan, so maybe that was his sadness of not having a family and being left to the devices there. But he didn't, I don't know, it was, from memory anyway, I don't think it was ever explained that he had some kind of a terrible childhood that turned him into the nut bar that he was in the end. So maybe he's an example of another kind of villain, but not my preferred kind, not the kind of villain that I think that we should be, well, personally aiming for. Is it a villain who believes, okay, so for example, believes that the world would be better off without A, B, C, whatever, that somehow they're doing it for the good of man or the womankind, or something like that. So I'm trying to think of some more villains. I probably should have written up a list of villains prior to beginning recording, but given that I am who I am, I did not. I've got, so villains in my series. So we've got one out of the Dragon series, Dragon Rising. He believes that the world is a better place without dragons, and in a lot of ways that's right, because dragons actually in the past have kind of decimated the planet, and they just were killing people left, right and centre because they didn't care, because they were overpopulated. There were too many dragons and there were too many of them fighting for territory, and it all just became a massive fight for territory. So they were in fact destroying the planet, and all the other supernaturals got together and managed to destroy the dragon population. And then my main heroine is like the last dragon shifter in the world. And I guess that guy, I mean, in some ways he's right? Like the dragons did destroy things, and his perspective isn't necessarily completely invalid or completely wrong, but at the same time he's kind of up against my heroine, who is not a bad person and is also a dragon shifter. So there's kind of perspectives, maybe shades of grey involved in that. Yeah, and he comes off as a bad guy to begin with, because he's doing something that's completely opposite to what, like, kind of potentially going to hurt the main character, but actually once you start talking to him, maybe he is just protecting the people, because he is right about the dragons almost destroying the planet years before. So that's kind of one. I'm trying to think of the other ones. So Fire Mage, that is another villain who, again, it's someone who thinks he's doing something for the right reasons, but maybe going about it in the wrong way. So he has it's a epic fantasy, young adult epic fantasy, where the kingdom where they live in has been decimated, like destroyed by this particular king. And so the bad guy comes along, and he kind of, I mean, I can't remember if it's a secret in the book. This could be a spoiler, I'm sorry if it's a spoiler. I don't think it's that much of a spoiler, but he secretly, without anyone else knowing, starts killing off the royalty who stand between him and the throne, because he thinks that he can do a better job of ruling this nation. And maybe he's right. Maybe he could have done a better job, but he also went around killing people, so maybe that wasn't the nicest possible thing. So it was kind of like this idea of a means to an end, you know, like if you have a good intention, does any means towards the end, are they justified? Is it okay to do that kind of thing? I don't know. He's still the bad guy in my books, but maybe one day he will become the not so bad guy. Someone that when time comes for them to actually sit down and talk with him, maybe they'll realize that he's not so far distant from the main characters, Jenna and Nate, as they always thought. I don't know. I haven't written that book yet. Haven't got to the third book in that series. Just about to start writing it now. But and then the bad guy or bad person. Oh my gosh, they're always men. Oh, I have an extreme bias towards making my bad people men. I should really correct that. Okay, next book. It's going to be a woman. Bad person. It's going to be a woman. so in the Demon series, it's actually, no, I'm going to talk about the Carnival series because that's easier for me. So Carnival series is a guy called Hugo Blue, and he is another one who has a backstory where he was kind of mistreated. He was a young boy. He was used by his father to create curse magic, which is basically you create this curse magic by hurting someone, preferably someone close to you in your family. So he had bad stuff happen to him through his father, and then he becomes he does the same thing to his son. And part of his story is part of it is that he's kind of really jealous and kind of bitter and angry about the way his life turned out versus the people who live in the carnival. And where the carnival is, everyone protects each other. There's a group of people who is look after each other through thick and thin. They share the magic. They work together on things. It's it's magic for good rather than evil kind of thing. And you can kind of feel sorry for him. I kind of sometimes feel sorry for him. I think he's this guy who had the potential to be all these things, but he was kind of just, the life that he was given became made him it just taught him different things, taught him different life lessons. So I don't know, I just think part of what we should be doing as authors is trying to create characters who are really well-rounded and have like full backstories, even if the backstory isn't through the book or anything, but just making sure that there's all the stuff that we need in that book to kind of really get our teeth into it. And I did say demons. The Demon series, I think there's a few different bad guys in that, and some of them are the same bad guys as are in the Dragon series. It becomes the director in both series, actually. And when I think about it, I'm not sure that he has much of a backstory other than being quite power hungry and wanting to rule the world. So maybe I don't always create amazing backstories. So, but I think my ultimate aim is to do that, is to create villains who aren't just completely like bad people. I think it is more interesting to create people who are doing something that is at cross purposes to the hero or heroine, and therefore it's kind of can be seen as the person who's the bad guy or the causing the conflict in their story, but not, I don't know, I think maybe it heads back to this belief that maybe there is no such thing, although as soon as I say that I think of examples, but I think in the most part, most people are not completely bad. Like, of course, maybe there are people who have done some horrific things, and you could potentially make arguments for them being completely bad. But I think, in general, most people do bad things sometimes, do good things sometimes, and not inherently evil. Maybe do bad things because they're in a situation that makes them or they feel forced to. I don't know. I just think good versus evil is not always black and white. It's often more grey. It's a something in between. So that's just my take on villains, and I think a really good villain is someone who has maybe a lot of purpose, is maybe a little bit morally grey, so maybe there's some good stuff in them as well as some bad. Wouldn't that be confusing as a reader? To have a character who's not completely bad, but just something to them that makes it, maybe at the end of the series, if the villain dies, that maybe we shed a few tears for them as well. Maybe they're not as bad as we think they could have been. I don't know. I just love a really good backstory that kind of explains why they did what they did, and maybe makes us feel a little bit like they had a rough time, even though they were the bad guy. Anyway, I haven't really managed to make anything other than a circular ball and two big feet that kind of looks like duck feet. So I don't know, am I going to make a duck out of this? Maybe not. Maybe they're going to be wings. I did think that they were going to be wings, and then they stopped. But I haven't finished them, but I'm not going to keep making you watch me sit here and make something with FIMO. I'm going to stop and finish it off and then show you next time. All right, farewell. See you next time. That was Trudi Jaye, fantasy author.